Have you ever noticed how some people carry themselves as if they've already lived 1,000 lives? They're 25 but speak like they're 50. They're young, but their eyes hold something ancient. They sit in a room full of laughter and seem to be observing from somewhere just outside of time itself. There's something strange about the person who feels older than everyone else. They're not trying to be mature. They're not performing wisdom. It's deeper than that. It's like they skipped childhood and went straight to understanding mortality. While their peers are discovering themselves, they already feel tired of what they've found. And here's the paradox. They're young, but it feels like they've been waiting their whole life to finally be the age they actually are. So what creates this sense of premature aging? What happens in the psychology of someone who feels like an old soul trapped in a young body? By the end of this video, you'll understand why this feeling wasn't a flaw but an adaptation. Let me paint you a picture. You're 7 years old. Your parents are fighting downstairs, but you're not crying, you're not hiding. You're calculating. You're reading the room, predicting outcomes, managing your own emotional response so you don't become another problem they have to deal with. This is where it begins. The person who feels older than everyone else didn't choose wisdom. Wisdom chose them, or rather, necessity did. Somewhere in their early years, they were forced to develop a level of awareness their brain weren't ready for. They became the mediator, the caretaker, the one who learned to read the emotional temperature of every room and adjust accordingly. Psychologists call this parentification, when a child takes on adult responsibilities, whether practical or emotional. But what matters isn't just the responsibility itself. It's the shift that happens internally. Their mind learns to operate from hypervigilance, from premature understanding, from an awareness that safety is fragile. According to attachment theory, children develop their sense of self through consistent, attuned caregiving. But when that consistency is disrupted through trauma, neglect, instability, or even overwhelmed but well-meaning parents, something else forms. A premature self-reliance, an early awareness of how easily things can fall apart. And once you see behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. Here's the truth. Feeling older than everyone else is fundamentally lonely. You're at a party. People are laughing, dancing, losing themselves in the moment. And you're there, physically present, but internally, you're somewhere else. Watching, analyzing. Part of you genuinely enjoys seeing others happy. But another part, a larger part, can't quite access that same lightness. It's not that you don't want to. It's that you don't remember how. This isn't about being mature. It's about existential awareness. People who feel older have often encountered something: early loss, responsibility, emotional instability, or even just heightened sensitivity that forced them to confront impermanence before they were ready. And once you understand that everything is temporary, that security is conditional, that people leave and circumstances change, you carry that knowledge quietly like a stone in your pocket. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski described this as positive disintegration, the idea that some people are born with heightened sensitivity and developmental potential. They feel more, sense more, process more. Their nervous system is turned up. And that intensity often brings early awareness of complexity and suffering, things others their age haven't had to confront yet. But here's what's really happening. While everyone else builds identity through external experiences, parties, relationships, exploration, you've been building yours internally. You've been having conversations with yourself that most people won't have until much later in life. And that creates distance, not superiority, but distance. And everything that follows grows from that gap. This is where it becomes complicated, because the person who feels older becomes very good at something: performing normalcy. They learn when to laugh, when to show interest, and when to mirror excitement. They learn how to appear engaged in things that feel, internally, empty, and it's exhausting. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding conflicting internal states. For the old soul, the dissonance is constant. I should care, but I don't. I should feel excited, but I feel distant. I should be like them, but I'm not. So they split. The external self adapts. The internal self retreats. And silence becomes a refuge, not because it's empty, but because it's the one place where no performance is required. But here is the quiet cost. This constant calibration between who they are and who they expected to be slowly reinforces isolation. Because connection requires exposure, and exposure means letting others see the parts of you that do and fit neatly, the parts that are serious, aware, tired. Inside, there's a constant observer. You're at dinner with friends, and part of you is watching. You're in a relationship, and part of you is analyzing. You achieve something meaningful, and part of you sees it as just another point on an arbitrary timeline. Psychologists sometimes call this the witnessing consciousness. It's a gift. You see patterns others miss. The internal self retreats. You remain calm in moments others can't. You're the one people turn to when things stop being simple. But it's also a curse, because you can't turn it off. Research on self-awareness and the brain's default mode network suggests that some people experience more constant self-referential thinking. They're always aware, always reflecting, always watching themselves experience life. And when this awareness develops early alongside responsibility or trauma, spontaneity becomes difficult. Recklessness feels unsafe. Naivety feels impossible. Not because you don't want it, but because you understood the consequences too soon. This is where the longing comes in. The person who feels older isn't searching for excitement. They're searching for resonance, for people who don't require translation. They're drawn to older minds, mentors, and other old souls. And when they finally meet someone who gets it, someone who doesn't need small talk, who can sit in silence or speak honestly, it feels like relief, like being seen. But even then, it's complicated, because deep down, many old souls carry the belief that they're too much, too intense, too serious. They've been told to lighten up, to stop overthinking, to just have fun. So they learn to dim themselves. Psychologically, this aligns with what Carl Jung called the persona, the social mask. But for the person who feels older, the persona isn't just a mask. It's protection. In relationships, the pattern continues. They become the stable one, the emotionally available one, the one who anticipates needs and creates safety. They're good at it because they've been doing it their whole life. But who holds space for them? Attachment research shows that people who learn early that their role is to manage, not to need, often struggle to receive care. They don't know how to ask, not because they don't deserve support, but because they were taught not to require it. So they give and give until one day they realize they're exhausted, not dramatic, just deeply, quietly tired. They're not actually older. They're tired. There's a cost to skipping developmental stages. Erik Erikson described identity as something built through sequential challenges. When those stages are bypassed, the unmet needs don't disappear, they resurface later. Grief for a childhood never lived, anger for responsibility taken too early, a sense of loss that doesn't have a clear name. What often emerges is a false self, not fake, but constructed for survival. The playful self, the uncertain self, the needing self it learned to hide. And the work isn't about becoming younger. It's about integration. As time passes, something unexpected happens. Others begin to catch up emotionally. The depth you carry becomes less isolating. And sometimes, as you age, you feel younger. You allow play, curiosity, mésalliances, not because you've regressed, but because it's finally safe. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth. But growth begins when survival is no longer the only mode, and you don't have to wait. If you feel older than everyone else, you're not broken. Your nervous system learned to adapt. Your awareness developed early. Your depth came from necessity. That depth isn't something to erase, it's something to hold differently. You don't need to become lighter to belong. You don't need to pretend. And maybe you don't need to meet anyone else differently. Maybe you need to meet yourself. The psychology of feeling older than everyone else isn't about age. It's about awareness. And awareness, once gained, doesn't disappear, but it can soften. It can be held with compassion, with gentleness, with permission. You're not old, you're not young, you're just aware. And now you get to decide what that awareness becomes.